Hello everyone, Emma Power here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one, we're going to be taking a look at the best cards for GLC from the upcoming set, Silver Tempest. So the rules for GLC, in case you aren't so sure on them, only one type allowed per deck, there are no Pokemon with a Raw box allowed, and only one copy of any card bar basic energy can be included. So it's essentially a singleton format that focuses on little Pokemon of a single typing. It's also black and white onwards, which is probably worth mentioning. So at number 10 spot here, we have Emergency Jelly. That's great for these Pokemon such as Donphan with ability Sturdy. Sturdy is an ability that says if this Pokemon is full HP and would be knocked out by damage from an attack, this Pokemon is not knocked out instead, and instead its HP becomes 10 instead. So that's a lot of insteads, but essentially it gives you a life point. Essentially gives you one more life point and another chance to attack the following turn. And what Emergency Jelly does is essentially heal your Donphan right back up and then allow you to make use of a second Sturdy and effectively a second Rolling Spin. There is multiple Pokemon with Sturdy, so it is worth mentioning that, but I just thought Donphan was more popular and he was sort of like the obvious comparison to make here. Then at the number 9 spot, we have Crobat and Zeraora. Crobat with the attack critical bite for 3 colorless energy, bearing in mind triple acceleration is legal in this format. Critical Bite does 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon, and if you knock out a Pokemon with this attack, you take 2 more prize cards. In a format where multiple prize Pokemon are non-existent, being able to take 3 prizes in one turn is super strong effect. Of course, you do have to set up your opponent's Pokemon to be able to just knock them out for 30 damage, so it is going to require some setup. Thankfully, there is some low energy costing attackers, such as Weezing and Spiritomb, meaning you can direct the majority of resources into setting up a Crobat for Critical Bite, while doing damage continuously with Weezing to set this up. Either way, I think Critical Bite is a very powerful addition, and there's even a Golbat from, I believe, the set Darkness Ablaze that says when you evolve it, you get to draw 2 cards. So, very powerful attackers overall, and I do think this Crobat will end up seeing a bit of play. So then we have Zeraora with Battle Claw. For single lightning energy, does 30 damage, and then if your opponent's active as an evolution, does 60 instead. Nothing too crazy, but does soften up a lot of evolution Pokemon for later KOs, and Zeraora has the distinct advantage of having free retreat, 110 HP, and a second attack that for lightning and double colors does 80 damage. If we factor in cards like Muscle Band, this damage does start to seem more impressive, so I do kind of like the Zeraora, and I expect to see it included in some lightning decks. Then moving on to the number 8 spot, we have Sunflora. Sunflora with 90 HP, golden HP for level ball. The attack Sunbeam for either a double colors or a Rillaboom does 10 damage, and then you may discard 3 energy cards from your hand, doing 70 more for each card discarded in this way. Grass type attackers do usually have to try and stack a load of grass energy on one Pokemon, or something like a Shiftry or a Genesect, e.g., to do a whole ton of damage. But either way, Sunbeam is a very nice option and will allow you to do a whole lot of damage, provided you can get a bunch of energy in your hand. So number 7, we have the metal types here. Klinklang with triple gear ability says when you place Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may search your deck for up to 3 basic energy cards and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. So you can either use this to accelerate energy to power up a Klinklang in one turn, or just accelerate energy to power up another metal type. And typically metal types I think are fairly difficult to power up. You do have Bronzong to move the energy as well, so I do think it's a very powerful ability and should end up seeing a bunch of play. Cobalion Metagross I also thought were worth mentioning. Cobalion has the attack backup that does accelerate energy like Klinklang, which is always nice to see. 30 damage, and then choose up to 2 of your bench Pokemon. For each of them, search your deck for basic energy and attach them to that Pokemon. And then has the ability Code of Justice. It says attacks from your basic Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Dark. So this will just allow you to hit for a bit more damage on the very popular Dark types of the format. So I like Cobalion a lot, seems pretty good. And then Metagross has the ability Urgent Entry that essentially says if you drew it for turn, you can put it onto the bench and draw 3 cards. And then Meteor Mash for metal colors does 100 damage, and during your next turn, this Pokemon's Meteor Mash attack does 100 more. So if you're able to actually knock out a Pokemon with the first 100 damage, the following KO should be a 1-hit KO on any Pokemon in the game for 200 damage in this format. So very powerful attack, very powerful ability, also has 170 hit points, so I would expect this Metagross to see some play. Then at number 6 spot, we have Dragon types. Land says search your deck for up to 3 Dragon Pokemon and put them into your hand. A very powerful effect because it will just allow you to essentially find any 3 Dragon-type Pokemon, so I'm just repeating myself there. But essentially, this effect is just very strong in a format where consistency isn't really the big end of the stick for every typing, certainly not Dragon, so just having Lance as a nice option will be very, very good in being able to set up multiple Pokemon. Then the Zygarde and Dragonite I thought worth mentioning, more so the Zygarde, 90 HP, so we can find this guy with Level Ball. Has the attack Shout of Power, does 20 damage, and then you attach your basic energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. And then Speed Fang, or Speed Attack, for Grass Fighting does 70 damage. Not terribly great, but still will allow you to get some cheeky KOs in the early game against some evolving basics. Then the Dragonite, I'm aware there's like way better Dragonites, but I just thought this one was worth mentioning quickly. Energy Hurricane for Water, Lightning, Double Colors does 180, and then you can search your deck for 3 basic energy and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. This will allow you to set up another big Dragon-type Pokemon if you end up using it. For the number 5 spot, we have the Psychic types, mainly Meowstic. With 90 HP, we can find this guy with Level Ball. Has the ability Inviting Ear that says when you place a Pokemon from your hand to evolve on your Pokemon during your turn, you may search your deck for any 2 supporter cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand. A very strong ability in a format where tracking down supporters can be a little bit difficult, so I think Meowstic will be a welcome addition to Psychic decks. There's also a Curly or Gardevoir line with the ability Refinement that says you may discard a card from your hand and draw 2 cards. Very powerful ability, and Psychic types have kind of been lacking a bit of a draw engine, I feel, so having Refinement will be a lovely addition. There's also the alternative Gardevoir with the Shining Arcana ability, which is a very nice option to play. And you can even run one of the Gallades, either the one with Buddy Catch or the one that essentially can change its type between Psychic and Fighting. So, big fan of this idea, and I think it could end up being pretty good. And then we have the Mismagius. That's okay, I just thought it was worth slopping on here. It says if it gets knocked out, you place 8 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon, and then its attack places 2 damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon. Doesn't sound like much, but in a format where stage 2s are essentially the pinnacle of HP, spread attackers, not so bad. So then at number 4 spot, we have Rapidash and Wailord. Rapidash has the ability Heat Boost that says once your turn, you may discard a fire energy card from your hand. If you do, during this turn, your fire types do 30 more damage. This does stack, but unfortunately, since you can only play the single Rapidash in your deck, it's only acting as a plus 30 buff. But still, a plus 30 buff could be a major difference between taking KOs and not. And as we've seen earlier, having massive amounts of HP is a huge plus side in this format, so people naturally want to lean into attackers like Wailord, who have a lot of HP, so having an ability like Heat Boost will be a massive buff for fire decks. And then Wailord does have to compete with several other broken Wailords, but essentially 200 HP is an awful lot of HP to have on a stage 1. It does have a retreat cost of 4, but an amazing ability Oversized says this Pokemon takes 30 less damage from your opponent's Pokemon. Very powerful ability in a format like this. And then Special Waves for 3 water and a colorless does 120, and it has a special energy, so Capture, Aromatic, Water, any of that kind of stuff. It does 240, allowing you to take a massive 1-hit KO on any Pokemon. So yeah, very powerful Pokemon cards that I expect to see play in their respective typings. So number 3, we have some more water type buffs. Who's Candice, you might ask? Well, Candice says, look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You may reveal any number of water Pokemon and water energy cards you find there and put them into your hand. It does compete with Irida and Nessa, but I do think this is a more budget-friendly version of Irida, and of course you can play both, so I do like Candice, nice way to set up. And then Articuno has a main attack for 2 water, Wild Freeze, does 70 damage, and it also does 50 to itself if you choose. But if you do this, it also does Polarisis. So, nice effect, could end up trapping up some Pokemon in their opponent's active spot. And then the Manaphy for 70 HP says Beach Party. For 1 water, you can search your deck for 3 basic water Pokemon, put them onto your bench. Just another nice water type Pokemon that you might want to open the game with and enable you to set up quite nicely. In second place, we have the fighting types. So I thought Terrakion was really solid, 120 damage for 2 fighting colors, and then prevent all damage done to this Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. So you can't spam Cavern Tackle back to back, but it's still a strong effect, granting you immunity and forcing your opponent to play an escape rope or boss's orders around it. There's also a new Palossand that says Sandpit Tomb, does 30 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon, don't apply weakness and resistance for bench Pokemon. Just a nice way of including spread damage, I guess, in fighting type decks if you need to soften up some Pokemon. There's also a new Claydol and Stonejourner. The Claydol has the ability Mysterious Charge. Says once in your turn, if you have no supporter cards in your discard pile, you may attach your fighting energy from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. So if you're not actually playing very many supporters, you can start playing stuff like Palpad and VA Seeker, and then make use of this Claydol engine to start accelerating energies to use Cavern Tackle and stuff. There's also a Stone Journal with 130 HP and Mysterious Press that does 60 damage, and if you don't have any supporters in your discard pile, this attack does 130 more. So an awful lot of damage for a basic to be swinging for, knocking out most of the stage 2s if not all, so very powerful attackers, and I think finding types as one of the clear winners from this set. In first place, though, we do have Aromatic Incense, Primordial Altar, and Furisode Girl. So Aromatic Incense says flip a coin, if heads, search your deck for an evolution Pokemon, but if tails, you search your deck for basic instead. A very powerful effect because in a format where all your Pokemon search is in one-offs, such as Level Ball, Nest Ball, Evolution Incense, Timer Ball, being able to essentially play an item that can find either a basic or evolution will be very useful the vast majority of the time, so a very welcome addition to GLC. Also, Furisode Girl says, search your deck for base Pokemon, put onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. You may switch that Pokemon with your active. A very, very powerful supporter going second because it will allow you to obviously search your deck for something like a Tail-Light Mew from Celebrations, or, something like the Cobalion from the Metal types, or the Manaphy for the Water types. So, very powerful supporter, and also does nice in the late game as well, just being able to switch into a basic if you need to buy yourself some time. So I do like the supporter a lot. Also, Primordial Altar says once during each player's turn, that player may look at the top card of their deck and then they may discard it. Not a very crazy stadium. I guess it's good for combos and decks that really want to have a lot of synergy with a discard pile in GLC. But the main thing is, it's just a nice passive stadium to have. It's not really as aggressive or disruptive as Pokestop, and essentially gives you an option to include a stadium. But either way, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think down below. Is there any cards that I missed out from Silver Tempest that will be great buffs for GLC? And yeah, thank you all for watching, and hope you'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.